So the teaser trailer for Martin Scorsese's new film Killers of the Flower Moon is finally upon us. Gone are the days where Scorsese fanatics would frantically search for any new tidbit of information from the film and be met with that shot of Leonardo DiCaprio sitting at the table. Often, Scorsese would release a film every 2 or 3 years, but it's been 4 years since the release of The Irishman, and off the top of my head, that means this is the longest gap between feature films for Martin Scorsese since Shutter Island came out after The Departed, and that was because of Oscar politics anyway. Long-time subscribers of the channel will know I've been following this project since its inception. And I remember when it was first touted as a tiny little film, so small that Scorsese would squeeze it in between The Irishman and Devil in the White City, and would even wrap up filming before The Irishman came out. Fast forward 4 years, and it's now apparently the most expensive film of Scorsese's career with an insane budget of $200 million or so. Before we take a look at the trailer, there's just a few things I wanted to mention. In recent months, there's been a lot of news about the film, and usually I'd make videos following the pieces of information, but I chose not to because there was so much random info flying around and half of it seemed to be like speculation and misinformation. At one point, it was revealed that Robert De Niro is hardly in the film. Then I read a report that said he was actually the main character. There was talk that the movie was almost 4 hours long, but all the news outlets saying this were quoting a Variety article which said the film was 3 hours and 26 minutes, which is almost 4 hours, but it's misleading to just say 4 hours and leave it at that when you're actually saying 3 hours and 26 minutes. So it's basically 3.5 hours long. But there was one journalist who was adamant he was shown a cut of the film which was indeed 4 hours. There was talk that the film is nowhere near that long, it's actually 3 hours long but has a really long epilogue and end credits. At one point, Leonardo DiCaprio was playing the main character. Then, apparently, it was Jesse Plemons. Then, it was reported that it was indeed DiCaprio. The point I'm making is that there's so much news flying around the film, and it's hard to decipher what's true and what isn't. Although, to be honest, a lot of this may actually have been true at one point or another, because Killers of the Flower Moon is a project that evolved even while it was being filmed, with the script changing constantly on set. Originally envisioned as a murder mystery following the deaths of rich Osage Indians in the 1920s, with DiCaprio playing FBI agent Tom White, DiCaprio apparently initiated changes to the entire structure of the film, shifting the focus away from White, who is now played by Jesse Plemons, to Ernest Burkhart, a white man who is married to an Osage woman, who becomes embroiled in the murder plot, without giving too much away. DiCaprio is now playing him, and De Niro is his uncle William Hale, and the film is now apparently a moody character study centered on the husband and wife rather than a murder mystery following the FBI. In fact, I've heard the mystery is so unimportant that you more or less know who the killer is around 20 minutes into the film, and initially Killers of the Flower Moon was going to be basically an epic old school western. I've read the book, and though I think the original version of the film would have been great, the new version sounds even better. It sounds more in line with the great Scorsese pictures where he explores dark characters like Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. You can sum up his character pieces with one-worded themes. Isolation for Taxi Driver, rage for Raging Bull. For Killers, I would say the word of the day is greed. Also, while they were making the film, changes were made. Apparently, a lot of these changes involved more scenes for the Osage Nation's voice to be heard, so that it isn't completely about Ernest Burkhart and the people around him, but the nation as a whole and how the Reign of Terror, as the events in the film became to be known, affected the Osage tribe. I think my relationship with the film is good as well, better than when I went into The Irishman. When I watched The Irishman, because I knew the book inside out and had been obsessed with the film for like 2 years, my first watch was difficult because I spent half the time going, wait, it wasn't like that in the book. Why is this part different? Why did they cut that part out? But with Killers, I read the book a few years ago after Scorsese announced he'd make the film, and I haven't really gone back to it since, so I remember the overall story, but intricate details evade me. So onto the trailer. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing where YouTubers break down each and every frame and speculate what might be happening, because I more or less know the story anyway, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But this is just my overall thoughts on the teaser. In general, it's a fantastic trailer. I don't know who they outsource these trailers to, but Scorsese films in recent years have had brilliant trailers. The Irishman, Silence, The Wolf of Wall Street, all great trailers, and this is up there. So many trailers these days feel the same structure, same setup. It's like they're all using the same template. This one was great. It doesn't show you too much, doesn't give too much away, but it's powerful. It feels like real cinema. It's like it's saying, step aside, superhero movies, it's time for a real film. The trailer really pumps you up, the way it slowly quickens in pace, the wolf howling, the native chanting and screeching. It's eerie, ominous. You can feel there's something up, there's something not quite right. Maybe it's because DiCaprio is the only one who speaks in the trailer. All those shots of numerous characters and no one says anything, they just stare. Ernest Burkhart narrates a story from a children's book about a wolf, maybe teaching his kids or more likely learning himself. And the way they got the dialogue to match up to what was on screen was great, talking about the great white father and showing De Niro's William Hale, right down to the brilliant last shot of the people staring and DiCaprio going, "Can you find the wolves in this picture?" I like that shot. Obviously it's not going to go down in the film like that, but with DiCaprio's voiceover, it's almost like an Easter egg for those who know what the story is and what that particular shot is saying. Does anyone remember that shot near the opening of Scorsese's Casino where all the old-time mobsters are talking and then they all just stop and start staring? It's very similar to that. Immediately, some things come to mind straight away from the first few shots of the trailer. The first is that the colours look quite muted and desaturated. It's actually one of my pet peeves about modern movies. They are often colourless and look dark, but here it fits. The second is that it looks expensive. I don't know if it's $200 million expensive, but I was getting Gangs of New York or There Will Be Blood vibes, and I'm really digging the huge sets they've built and recreated accurate depictions of the old towns, right down to the dirt. No doubt it will make it easier to just be immersed into the story, the surroundings, the characters, and the environment. Another thing I got from it is that, and we know this from interviews anyway, but the Osage Nation's culture and heritage will play a huge part. It's almost like DiCaprio reading the book about the Osage in the beginning is a message from the filmmakers that we're taking these people and their plight seriously. Now that's brilliant because if this is a movie about greedy killers doing their thing and then getting caught, it should be good. But if it showers itself in the culture of the Osage people and really allows us to feel what it was like for them as individuals and as a nation to have so much torn away from them, the film can be an emotional masterclass. Because that is something I wondered as someone who's read the book. In the book, before the story even gets going, the author details the way the Osage people were oppressed. The fact that they were forced to move to new land. When they found oil, the government did not even give them access to their own wealth and had white quote-unquote guardians who looked after the Osage people's cash. And of course, this power was abused. There's one particular harrowing story of a woman begging her guardian for money for her sick baby, and after not getting it, the baby dies. So this is the kind of stuff these people went through, and it could easily be skipped past to start the story with Ernest and Molly. But I hope, and it does look like, the movie will really allow the Osage people to have their story heard. Another thing I noticed is that a lot of shots of what seemed to be a major court case that occurs in the story. I did wonder how much of the film's runtime would be dedicated to this, because you just never know what parts of a book a film will focus on. I mean, for example, the book is as much about the birth of the FBI as it is the Osage people, William Hale and all of that stuff, but it looks like the film won't focus too much on the FBI. Either they want to give us a lot of shots of Brendan Fraser because he just won an Oscar, or the court case will play a big part in the story, as it should, because it should give us some terrific segments in the film. Am I the only one who thinks De Niro looks so damn cool and sinister in the shots we see of him in the trailer? I'm hoping he's in it a lot. You know, it's kind of funny. People are joking about De Niro finally playing an age-appropriate role after The Irishman, but he actually isn't. Because William Hale, if I remember correctly, was in his 40s during the events of the film. Still though, 40 years old in the 1920s are not the same as 40 years old today. And it's actually quite uncanny how they got De Niro to look so similar to the real Hale, much more than DiCaprio and Ernest Burkhart. And anyway, who cares? Joe Pesci played a 20-year-old in his 40s in Goodfellas. Jesse Plemons pops up in the trailer too in a blink and you'll miss it scene, with DiCaprio doing his best De Niro impression. In fact, he's scowling and grimacing all over the trailer. I'm not going to get into it here, but I gotta be honest, I'm not the biggest DiCaprio fan around, and this is partly why. I just kind of feel he does the same thing in almost every movie. He always has the same facial expressions and emotions, the scowl, the grimace, the screech, the constipated one. He's been magnificent in films here and there, like Blood Diamond, but a lot of the time I get the vibe that he's saying, "Look at me, look everyone, I'm acting." and I'm kind of getting that vibe here. I tend to enjoy him more when he loosens up, like in Django Unchained or The Wolf of Wall Street. But it's a good role for him. It has the potential to be among the most complex of characters in Scorsese's filmography. There's quite a few action scenes, it looks like. It's probably misleading trying to make the film look more action orientated, but the bit where the money is flying everywhere and the fella's putting it in his hat, and another part where the cops are shooting someone, may all be from the same scene. It looks like someone tried to rob a bank or something, and there is a side character in the story who will be a robber. This could even be like a typical Scorsese quickfire montage when introducing his character, telling us what he's all about. I'll tell you something, shots of those little tubes, someone being carried out of the house, if you slow down the trailer, even if you don't know the story, you can get quite an accurate gist of what the plot is about. Did you see the shots of the cars flying past? I remember seeing behind the scenes footage of that. It looks like some kind of race is taking place. Should be interesting. Anyway, great trailer. Really looking forward to the film. What are your thoughts on the teaser? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.